Hi everyone and welcome to the ACS Virtual Development Series. I'm Catherine and I'm hosting Webinar 1, which is all about creating video content for learning. So we're going to go through the webinar will go through two sections, and I'm going to introduce the ACS ICT Educators program, and then I'm going to talk about creating video content for learning. So who is ACS and where do I kind of fit into everything as well? So ACS is a member-driven program and we are the peak body for IT professionals. And the main aim of ACS is to grow the capability and the capacity of the IT workforce. We bring out an annual publication each year called the Digital Pulse, and it looks at the landscape of IT skills and professionals within Australia. Two of the big points that we find is that 29% of the IT workforce is female. And the second thing is that there is a prediction that by 2024, we're going to have over 100,000 IT jobs vacant within Australia. So there is a little bit of disconnect between the IT professionals and what's happening within Australia as well. So that's where the ACS ICT Educator program comes into it. And our main aim with the program is to support and develop teachers' use of digital technologies, but also implement the digital technologies curriculum. Speaking with teachers, we found that there are two main issues when it comes to the digital technologies curriculum, and that's implementation and content knowledge. And so what that means is that a lot of teachers are struggling with how to actually integrate the digital technologies into the curriculum and into their classroom. And the second thing is that they're having a little bit of trouble understanding what the content descriptions are actually asking them. So four ways that we've actually been able to try and support teachers is through a full-day professional development, and that's where I come into the classroom, into your school, and deliver a whole school program. The main reason behind that is because we want to be able to have a whole entire school hear the same message at the same time. And by the end of the day, we're going to have implementation of the digital technologies curriculum into your classes as well. And guaranteed people are going to get excited about Digitech as well. The second thing is that we found that we wanted to unpack the curriculum for teachers. So we created some documents that rather than categorizing the information alphabetically, we created it so it was actually level-based. So if you're a Foundation to 2 teacher, all of the information at your level is in one spot. And we've written it so it's really plain speak and it helps you understand what the content description is actually asking you as well. That goes all the way through from Foundation to Year 10. Then we also understand that not every single state within Australia is going to be using the Australian digital technologies curriculum. So what we've done is we've created some mapping documents for you that on one side you've got your own state, and then on the other side you've got the link between the Australian curriculum. It means then that if you find any assessment pieces or any lessons that are aligned to the Australian curriculum, we've matched that for you to help you match it to your curriculum. Next of all, my favourite one is that we've got over 30 lesson plans and units of work for you as well. So I've been collaborating with schools in the past 2 years, and I have been creating content for them to help them implement the digital technologies into their classroom. I provide the lesson plans, the success criteria, an assessment sheet for you as well. All of those are made with schools because what we wanted to make sure that the lessons that we've provided to teachers is valuable, that it hits the target level, and it also provides you with enough information to assess if you are writing reports. And there's even a couple of blanket statements for you that'll help you understand what to do as well. If you're up to the stage of doing robotics, we have a bank of these amazing Qubit robotics. You must get in contact with me if you are looking to use some robotics in the classroom. There's an array of different gadgets and things inside all of them, so you would absolutely love them. All of the content that I've just spoken about is all available through this website if you sign up as well. So please have a look. I'll give you a couple of minutes just to write this down, take a photo screen of it, sign up. It's free to sign up, and all of the resources are freely available to support you to implement the digital technologies curriculum. Now we're also going on to the second part of it, and that's about creating video content for learning. Now, I understand that I have spoken quite a lot about the digital technologies curriculum. Rest assured that the rest of this webinar is not digital technology focused, but rather we wanted to create this webinar so you can grow the capability and the capacity to use technology for learning purposes, especially while we've all been impacted by COVID-19. What we decided to do was bring you one of those topics was about creating video content for learning, an area that I am so passionate about and absolutely loved when I was in the classroom, supporting teachers in this area, especially when they wanted to start off, but they weren't quite too sure how to get that little push to start off with. So we're going to cover 5 different areas, and it's looking at all the way starting at that technology is the tool. But we're also then looking at the benefits of using video, know the context, because without knowing the context, you don't really know whether it's going to be beneficial or not. And then another influence that will be there is the pedagogy. So what type of teaching style are you going to use is going to then again influence what type of videos you create for your learners. The very last part is all about creating the content. So what it looks like and a couple of examples as well. I can't go into digital technology because one thing that we always have to understand is that unfortunately, and I'm sorry to say this, that there's no magic bullet for technology. There is not one single device that is going to do everything for you because one size does not fit all. And what we don't want to create is a cookie cutter style of education. And what I mean by that is just replicating the same thing to the same student, to the same school. We are teachers and educators because it's our purpose is to educate students, and that will change from student to student. And if we rely on technology and one piece of technology to do that job, we're taking that away from our students. So we really do need to remember, and the message is really certain, is that technology is just a tool. The benefits of using video. So one of my favorite benefits is that it's learning anywhere. It can take place at any time, and the students can go through that work and the pace of their own learning themselves. Content can be viewed, it can be paused, and it can be rewatched multiple times. And students almost then start to take ownership of their own learning, because if they get to the very end of that video and they're not quite sure about it, it enables them to go back and find those little bits and pieces that will help them discover more knowledge within that area as well. Reduction of repetition. Oh, this one for me was the biggest one at all. Teacher instructions and not having to repeat instructions and explanations. Oh my goodness. So we created some video content for a teacher who was actually doing some Stephanie Alexander kitchen garden stuff. And a lot of her lessons were obviously very hands-on. And what she found is that the students weren't remembering how to use the knife skills. And so she created a selection of videos that went back through all of that information that she had taught and started every single lesson off. She was able to reduce that teacher instruction part of her lesson, and any time any students weren't holding their knives or the cutlery or whatever equipment they were using, she would direct them back to the videos and make them watch them. So it meant that she, as the teacher, was able to go to other areas and help out more students. It means then that you're creating content, your own content, and that sometimes there's a lot of content out there, but sometimes it may not be explained in the way that you would want it. Creating videos for your classroom allows you to be succinct and straight to the point and know that whatever content you want to create, you can yourself. And certainly at this time, it's really important to be making connections with your classroom, especially while they're remote learning, either by having you on video or by your audio coming through. It kind of creates a connection, even though you're not face-to-face in the classroom at the moment. So context is so important when you're thinking about your videos. So context, when we talk about context, we're talking about the environment. So looking at that education landscape that you have is going to change and influence the type of video that you create. It will also then influence the type of technology that you have available to you. What you might have available at home, students may not be able to access at school. I know a lot of schools are going down the path of restricting a platform like YouTube. So that then will influence the type of delivery you have. In some schools, having all of the content up on YouTube is going to work. In other instances, it won't work as well. And then it's also then the learner themselves, the ability to be able to address and allow them to learn as well. Then you've also got the content that you will be creating. That will be influenced by the subject that you're teaching. If you're a PE teacher, you would want to be able to show movement with yourself. If you're a mathematics teacher, your videos and the content that you create is going to look very different to an English teacher as well. So all of these areas will influence the context in which you are going to make your video. I want you to spend some time now and just to think about and reflect on these different pieces, because these different pieces and issues will help you to think about how my video might look. Then the next one, so now this little part of the presentation is going to be looking at different pedagogy that we have. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of flipped learning, but imagine you've got that lesson. So we normally have the introduction, the whole part of the lesson, and the conclusion. Let's take it a really, really broad understanding of a lesson. Well, that introduction part that you have within a lesson, that's actually done out of the classroom. So the students do that learning in their own time away from it. They come back into the classroom and they're at that whole class activity part. That's when they start to apply their learning, and they go straight into that part of the lesson. It means then that students are going to spend more time within that whole class activity rather than hearing the 10-minute instruction or introduction part of the lesson. An issue and an implication with this one is also getting the students to be able to do that when they're not in the classroom. Video works really well in this instance, as that video will be a great resource for you to use when they are doing their learning outside of their classroom. Then we've got blended learning. So you'll take online learning and face-to-face learning, and you'll mix a bit of both of them. So it's a bit from column A and a bit from column B. You may have your students that already have access to online platforms prior to COVID-19 and prior to working online. They may have been using those online platforms, say, to do group projects, to collaborate online. They may have been using them to complete homework tasks. So it may already sound familiar to you, and that's actually a good thing. You can also then use those video instructions to create resources to help children learn when you don't have them at face-to-face. That face-to-face doesn't necessarily have to be out of the classroom. It could be in an instance where you're using that video when you've got a small group with you and the rest of the students need to stay on task or they need to hear the instructions. You can create videos in that moment to be able for the rest of the students to stay on task. I've done it before where I've had a little face-to-face group, and they were really struggling with a maths concept when I was teaching grade 5, 6. We brought them down, we had a small group, and then I got every single one of them to bring their iPad. We were a one-to-one iPad school. They all brought the device down, and they videotaped me explaining and going through the process of this maths concept. When they got back to their desks, they used that resource to help them go through that context. And as I said before, the rewind, the play, moving through that video at their own pace, I could actually see them using that and using the information and the resources that I gave them to go through that information and that maths concept in their own time. It saved a lot of putting their hands up, waiting for me to come around to them. It was so much easier because they had that information there. They were able to keep the information about their concept and again work through, and they were actually really successful learners. Moving forward, blended learning might be a way that you will continue using technology once you come back into the classroom and you're face-to-face with your students again. The next one we have is called asynchronous learning. Now, asynchronous and synchronous learning come together. I will be talking more about those in our webinar too, but today we're just going to focus on asynchronous learning. If this is the first time that you've ever heard of the concept of asynchronous learning, definitely sign up to webinar 2 where we go into more detail about it. But as a quick overview, asynchronous learning is self-paced learning. So the student has access to an array of resources and learning content for them, and they just pace themselves and learn at their own speed. Imagine kind of like a Netflix style of learning where, and I'm sure we've been doing a lot of binge watching lately, I know I'm guilty of that, is that it allows you open up Netflix or Stan or one of those streaming services and you have an array of information and videos to watch. You decide what to watch when. The same concept like that is with something with asynchronous learning where you've provided them with all that information and they go through it themselves. Again, video is a fantastic resource and use of technology to ensure that they are going through and understanding the concepts as they're going. So before we get into now actually planning the content for the video, I want you to spend a little bit of time now on reflecting the context of where you're coming from, so your learners, what subject you'll be doing it for, and then how you will deliver the video content for your learners. Again, that is so important. And if you don't have those answers, then you actually may hinder the learning and it may not be, the video may not work out to the best way that you would like it to. So just spend a couple of minutes thinking about your students, thinking about what technology they have access to, and thinking about how you're going to deliver those video content and that video material to your students. When you are writing about, and now we're up to the stage of actually creating the material, is keep it really simple. You know, we're not like Spielberg. We're not trying to win a Golden Globe. It's just about learning. And the most important thing is that we're trying to engage our learners in their learning through video. So when you are creating that content, clear instructions. So clear intentions will keep you on track as well. And then those intentions, now we have to have learning intentions and success criteria for every single lesson. That becomes the drive of your video. Break down that learning intention into smaller parts. Don't prepare with a whole entire script. When I first started doing videos, I wrote out a whole entire script. And there are times as teachers, we can explain things really well. That's what we do for a living. But what we find is that when you have a script, I tended to go off on a little bit of a tangent. And then when I wanted to come back to the script, I'd actually lost my place. So what worked really well in this instance is preparing with key words. And those key words then keep you on track and keep the message positive as well. Don't ever use the word don't, because as soon as you have a negative in there, they may miss that don't. And then they'll end up doing what you don't want them to do. So always make it positive, always have that message clear and the intentions clear right from the start. Short, sharp videos. We don't have to, it doesn't matter how long they run for. As long as they are short, you've got one or two main points in there and the message is clear. When you're recording it, those key points that you had before, record them in sections. So I was recording a video a couple of weeks ago and I was told no longer than 5 minutes. Sounds doable. But I'd always get to about that 3-minute mark and confuse myself or pause or just do something a little bit different that I would then lose track. And unfortunately then you'd have to go all the way back to the start to start that video again. what I ended up doing was breaking it up into segments, which were about 30 seconds or a minute. That's doable, and it's so much easier to do. Short, sharp videos are also advantage from a technology point of view as well. Think about the size of the video when you're uploading, when your students are downloading. They need to be able to do that quickly and easily. Think about, remember that we were speaking about before the context in your learners. If you've got younger students, are they going to sit there and watch you talk about something for 45 minutes? Are they engaged in the learning, or are they just watching it because they've been told to watch it? Short, sharp. Repeat the examples as well, especially when you want them to do something. I always think about when someone leaves me a voicemail message and they say, oh, call me back on this number. And when they don't repeat it, I've got to go back, listen to the whole entire voicemail and pick out little bits again. And most likely the first time I hear the voicemail message, I'm not prepared with a pen or paper. And so then I've got to go find it, write it down, listen to the whole message again, get the rest of the phone number, and most likely listen to the voicemail message again to make sure that I've done it all right. If you repeat those examples a couple of times, it means the students are seeing it, and they're seeing it again, and they're seeing what you want them to be doing as well. The use of a personal greeting is so important. It kind of put your little spin on it. What we don't want to take away is the little things that you have when you're teaching as well, and your little quirks as well. But what I would suggest is don't make it time limited. So don't say, hi everyone, it's Monday morning, because you might show that on a Tuesday. If you put a year stamp to it, it means that it would look a little bit weird when you're when your students are watching something, say, from 2019, and now it's 2020. So reduce all of that, and just, if there's anything or a way that you greet your students, use that in the video as well. The use of visual cues is also really, really important, because those visual cues will help set up the students to visualize what important information is there. Now, those visual cues you can have as simple as a pen and paper and writing them down, and you will have them. Also, if you start changing the color of the font, you're actually going to be hindering learning. And I've probably lost a couple of you right now because you've probably been a little bit taken aback by this slide and the fact that I've got some stars in there. I've changed the font style. I've changed the style of the back. What we tend to do is put so much information on one area that we're actually hindering the learning, because right now you're probably looking at different things and trying to decipher what I'm saying and then what's important to the slide. Take it all away. And then what we are doing, remember, is that we are creating content for learning. We want our students to engage in the learning, not the entertainment side of it. And also, sometimes those fonts that you think are fun is actually, again, it's hindering their learning. Colourful letters. Is that actually quite hard to read? The big emoji with me with the jester hat on, I put that on there to make it fun. But that's not what it's there for. What we want to have is consistent. And we also then want to have enough information where they're actually going to have that white space. I feel like she's back to normal again. And it really does overwhelm the learner. And what we want to provide is white space. So we don't want to have too much on the one page, little bits and pieces with those key points for all of the key points that you have as well. And take your time and unpack those key points with your students. That white space that we provide on the paper is the equivalent of us saying in real life. So we want to be able to allow them for thinking. And it also then allows them to go from one thing to the next and able to digest that learning that they've just done and make it stick with them as well. The one thing that I kind of relate this to is a car park concept. So you're driving around and you're looking for a car park and it's really busy and you've got the radio on. How many of us end up turning the radio down when we're looking for a car park? Turning the radio down doesn't help us look for the car park or focus on what we're doing. The reason why we are doing it is because we can't focus on too many things at once. We just want to be able to focus on one thing at a time, and that's what we need to remember and do for our students. So I want to take you now just with an example of how I would create some content for the learners as well. So you can see is that I've got the word fractions and shapes. I've put them into green font. And then, so all of a sudden, that kind of comes out as a little bit more of a visual cue for those learners. I've kept the background white because too much, and we're going to end up like we had with that other slide as well when I was in the when I had the jester hat on. Didn't look pretty, did it? And so I use those ones, the white space. It allows them to think. They know exactly what they're going to be learning about and exactly the topic that the teacher is going to talk about as well. When I had some visual representations on the slide of the two circles and looking at fractions, so I wanted to have a visual cue for them. What I found really interesting is that when I did these two ones, I had it as just equals 3/4. And then I was thinking, well, hang on, what about if some learners are actually looking at the pink at this stage? And they may then confuse the 1/4, so the pink is equal to 1/4. And so I was just kind of thinking, what would learners maybe a misconception that could happen? And then I put the two little sentences in there and address the learner to look at the value of the circle that was red. And that's there coming into the 3/4 and the half. Again, I've got visual cues with the circles. I've used words in green. And if I was to create more videos, I would set them out to look exactly the same. I wouldn't change the font. I wouldn't change the colors that I've used. I'd always, forever, always have words that I wanted them to remember in that green. There's no point in changing them over. Remember, the reason why we are creating video content is we want them to engage in the learning, not for entertainment purposes. So I'm going to now take you through a couple of different ways, and both people that have created video content for you as well. This isn't, again, to say that this particular technology tool is going to be the best for you. It's about showing you examples of how people have created some video content. Remember how I was talking about that video that I created that was only 5 minutes that ended up taking me a lot longer than that? This is the video now. So one particular software that I'm really quite comfortable using is my mobile device. Got a grammar on it, and I'm happy to use that one. I'm also quite happy as a teacher myself to video me in the shot as well. Some teachers don't like that, and that's absolutely okay. So my preference then is to use my mobile device when I'm doing it and just record with me in it. The way then that I create the visual cues is I've put in slides between each of those little video recordings that I did before. So those 4 parts actually look like one long video, and they're divided by the visual cues. So you can see that this video, the next part of this video, was going to talk all about aligning technology with your teaching style. So it had it on there. The little icon, I kept it the same as well. Interesting to see that there's very, very many different facial expressions that you do have when you do video yourself, and then you look back on it. Look, it's one of those things where practice does make perfect, and if you do keep going at it, then you do get over those little things as well. I love iMovie, so it's a software program and an app that I can use and use quite easily as well. On a mobile device, it's got the basic functions for me just to edit, put all of those videos together and push one out as well. So this particular video, once I actually decided to cut it back down into parts, took me about 20 minutes to create as well. So there is some time, but the most time that I spent on was ensuring that the delivery of the message was right for my audience as well. Another person that I want to talk about today is Eddie Wu. I'm not sure if you're aware of who Eddie Wu is, but he has got an amazing YouTube channel, and he is a maths teacher as well. I think it was back in 2018 that Eddie Wu ended up winning an Australian of the Year award. I think that was it. And so I wanted to have a look and see what Eddie was doing in this space. interestingly, so I took a look at his YouTube channel, and all of the recordings that he does is in real time. So you can see in the top left-hand corner of one of the videos there that I've taken of his screenshot of his YouTube channel, that's actually a student's head there. So that might not be plausible for you to use, but what I want to show you and what I really want to focus on is the basic video and the materials and equipment that he uses within this video. Take away the students for a moment, and he's just got a whiteboard and a whiteboard marker. There's no visual cues that come up. There's no animations that appear. The visual cues all come from him writing on the whiteboard. The length of the videos, now this will depend on your students and their age. Again, going back to that context. But these videos range between 6 minutes to about 13 minutes as well. Because it's all done in real time, I think my favorite video is, I found one of them, and right at the start, he's actually telling his students to be quiet. So like, would you listen? I loved that because it shows the rawness of a teacher as well. Again, that may not be something that you are able to do, but the focus on this one is Eddie has just used the simple equipment of a whiteboard marker, and he's videoing himself. Again, the reason why we're making these videos is because we want our students to engage in learning. The next one we have is Khan Academy. Some of you may be familiar with Khan Academy. So Khan Academy has a range of videos, and they also start with a range of topics as well. Khan Academy first started out because he was living on one side of the USA and his cousin was living on another side, and his cousin needed help with mathematics. So they ended up putting instructional videos up on YouTube. Well, it turned out then that other students found these videos, and he was getting comments back from anyone around the world saying how valuable these videos were and how he was explaining them helped them with their maths. So that's actually how Khan Academy was first created. It's pretty interesting as well. This video and the screenshot that I have right now is a screenshot of a video that was put up in 2007, and it's still relevant today. Again, what I want to show you is the rawness of the video. So this particular, the teacher or the educator in this one, they only used, they were copying their screen. So they didn't want to have their face in it. But what I also wanted to show you and bring your attention to is how basic it was as well. The rawness of, drawing a circle. The circle's not perfect, but that doesn't matter. Again, we want to engage our students in the learning process. And so there was just an explanation of fractions and videos as well. So he is recording or she was recording their screen, and they're just using a cursive and a pointer, and that's how they're presenting the information there as well. Again, this video, it's over 13 years old now, and it is still relevant. So that what you think is basic is actually really purposeful for engaging our students in that learning process because we're using video as well. Don't feel as though then that each year you have to rejig and create that same content. Once you've made that content once, you can certainly reuse it and keep using it with your students as well and onto the following year as well. Keep it definitely with a bang. Now, if you have access to a mobile device and you like the idea of screen recording, I'm just going to bring it to your attention that you can screen record on your mobile device and your iPhone and possibly your iPad as well. Now, when you swipe up or down, depending on what iOS you've got, down the little bottom left-hand corner, you can see that there's a little circle. That's the record button. Don't make the mistake that I did, though, and press the record button and realize that my voice wasn't being recorded as well. What you may have to do is actually press the record button within it. So the way that I was able to access that is that I think I pressed the actual record button. I think I held it, and then you can see down the bottom of the second photo is that then the microphone was turned on. Now, if you If it's not available on that home screen when you swipe, then I want you to go into Control Center, and I want you to go into the customize controls, and in there you'll see screen recording as your option. That's when you can put it onto that home screen with the swipe up or swipe down as well. If you don't use an Apple product, I tried to do some research within other ones like Android. Look, I'm not sure if they're able to do that screen recording. They may or may not have that feature. But if you are an Android user, I would definitely look into that. If you've already got that technology and most likely you're confident in using that technology, why not give it a go and use it that way? The next one we have, and I was thinking about this as well, is another program that you can use, PowerPoint. Are you aware that you can screen record in PowerPoint? What I really like about this one is it actually gives you almost everything in one go. So you've got the PowerPoint slide where you can type in information, and as soon as you hit that record button, you'll notice then that another window opens up. It allows you to write into it. It allows you to do a pointer. It allows you to do some cursive. It allows you to type. But what I also really like, personal preference, is there's little me down the bottom as well. So your students then can see you. Again, if that's something that you're not comfortable with doing, then don't. Then screen recording is what you're looking for.